Welcome to the Spent the Rent podcast. I am your host, Patty Rose. My guest today is the dear friend of the podcast, Thomas Hiura, aka Gradient. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I think the last few times I've been on, I've made some kind of joke about how you should still listen, please, even though it's like my 7th time. But I know. I'm not offended at all.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different. This comes with a somber tone.
Yeah.
You know, last Friday, you were attending a show at Eugene, Oregon's historic WoW Hall. And unfortunately witnessed something that you never want to see at a concert, a shooting. And so you've been doing the rounds, talking to a lot of local media, also being interviewed by the police, which we're going to talk about today, and give your witness testimony. So tell us what happened last weekend, last Friday. You were at a concert at the WoW Hall. Tell us, about what was going on that night.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. I've thought about how much to come forward and, I guess, center myself in the narrative surrounding a conflict that I had very little to do with, besides the fact that I love supporting our local hip-hop scene, and I happened to be there that night, and I was the only person on the sidewalk at the time when the shooting took place. So I've thought about what to do, but ultimately I try to be an open book as a person when people ask me just about anything. And it turns out that you're the 9th media outlet to contact me, maybe 10th. And so I've shared with them, what I saw and tried to be as honest as possible. It was traumatic. I don't think it was one of the... I told my mom this, honestly, because she and I she knows that my life hasn't... this is like probably not even in the top 5 of like scariest or craziest things, that I've experienced, but it was being called, and of course the media blows things up like the most significant shooting in Eugene history or something. And
and there's like this difficult thing about like what makes a mass shooting, and realistically it's if more than 2 people are shot.
Right.
And the world that we live in.
There were 6.
There's so many unknowns, and people want to find a motive. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but I don't think that anybody knows as of right now, or at least not publicly. There's not something that a lot of people are going with, and so we're going to talk about that. But
I'm just really glad to try to put the focus on the issues that matter, trying to rally around hip hop so it's not torn down, because negative press is so easy to attach to hip hop. Instead of these artists try to get some positive press, and these mainstream outlets will never give them the kind of coverage. But all of a sudden, a rapper witnesses a shooting, and they're flooding our inboxes with with requests for information. But also leaving the focus on the victims of the shooting. I mean, it was 12 shots popped within about 4 seconds at 6 people. I think it's incredible that nobody passed away. I'm so grateful. I'm so glad that they're all with us. I felt in the moment that, when I first saw the shooter, he was shooting in the direction of the load-in door for the WoW Hall, where artists tend to hang out and smoke with their entourage, right? I was on the sidewalk by the bike racks, closer to the main front door of the venue. And so I could see him shooting, and it was loud. I could hear it. Well, that's what drew my attention. But I could not see who he was shooting at, so I just prayed that he wasn't shooting at anyone. But by the time I heard all this screaming and of people having been shot and being in pain, oh God, you're bleeding, that kind of thing, and as I proceeded down the alley to try to get myself to a safer area where I could talk to people who might be able to apprehend him, I was completely resigned to the fact that somebody had just died. I was completely resigned to the fact that I was... There was almost no way in my mind that everybody would survive. So it's a miracle. And what we really want as a community is to see accountability and really just have answers, because people are trying to fill in gaps. People are trying to blame. I mean, it's really, really sad. I see people who I really admire and respect intellectually, and just brazenly trying to say that, like that... I wonder how much I want to put anyone on blast when I just repaired relationships with certain people. But we just have stark disagreements on, like, okay, Savell the Native has videos where he talks about like standing up for and protecting himself, and makes references to weapons with like Native American terminology. Does that mean that that's why this shooting happened? No. That is so painful
we were talking
to
off
me.
air. We were talking off air about this, and I was talking about so
especially
regardless
when people consume the genre of gangster rap, and some of the same people are fans of
Well, let's just say this, okay? So there's a lot of narratives that initially you had called me and told me what had happened, but when I
called you right away when I was still on the scene.
And the first thing that I'm seeing, just as a person sitting at home, is social media. You call me, but then I go on Facebook, and I instantly see a news report. Breaking news: shooting at the WoW Hall at a rap show, and then a couple hours later, the police give their statement, and the chief Skinner gives his statement saying, nobody's came forward, nobody's cooperating, which in the comment section, which, I mean, honestly, at this point, people should just ignore them and just avoid it. But the reality is, in the comment section, people are saying, well, this is what happens at a rap show. Move on.
That was an unfortunate springboard for people to say, what do you expect? It's a Lil Bean and Zay Bang concert with the Peacoat gang. What do you expect? These people don't talk. These people don't talk to the police. Good luck getting anyone to talk. And just implying that it's gang violence and stuff like that. And so that's an unfortunate part where that's part of why I've done what I can to respect the truth of what I saw and what I have recorded, both in audio of the shots and video that includes the shooter running away immediately afterward.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
I want to talk about audio because you were at the show, and it's very common for you to record the audio of a concert. So
I went to Sublime with Rome, with Dirty Heads, I recorded the audio. I went to Tech 9, I recorded the audio. Like, it keeps me from having to have my phone up in the air and obstructing other people's view because I'm a somewhat tall person, and you just don't want to have your phone up in the air. But like later, especially if it's a up-and-coming artist, I'll listen to their stuff. I can check in on it later and be like, oh, I liked that song a lot, and try to look it up and find it. So yeah, I was 32 minutes into an audio recording that while I was outside getting some fresh air, I had kind of forgotten about that was still rolling, to be honest.
That's so wild.
Isn't that funny? But yeah, I was chatting with some folks, and they from that were college students, and they walked away, and I was kind of just getting ready to go back inside, and by that point there weren't many people outside. So people kind of got the impression that there were so many people there. How come so few people saw it? Well, it was just this one moment, and I'm sure that the shooter probably no one wants to be caught. He clearly didn't want to be caught. He was bolting from the scene and wearing all black, and might have had his face covered, at least with a COVID mask or something. I didn't get a close enough look at his face to say, but it was not many people out there, and since I had what I had, I've always, every single time I've spoken about this, tried to say that it's not a silver bullet. It's not that, ace up your sleeve that you want to pull out, but it can definitely corroborate and probably substantiate what the height is, the body type, the general outfit, where they were going, and at what time, as well as the number of shots and the sound of the shots, which I had on the audio before I started the video rolling.
Yeah. And as far as getting a visual, I mean, when this is happening, you're somewhat far away, and there's no way that you knew what was about to happen. And so it's just unfortunate that you couldn't get an actual, because the description that everyone, everything.
You hear a lot of the same things over and over in the comment sections, right? We talk about this, the comment sections, as if it's some kind of reservoir of deep consideration, thought, and knowledge. But that's another thing people would often say is like, okay, so the suspect is described as a suspect.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yes, it's a vague description, but it could also eliminate a large group of, like, let's say they really tried to bust some guy and he was 250 pounds. Well, I got video that shows that that's not what that guy looked like.
And then, I mean, the police have gotten some criticism and some praise, and I think both are warranted in some ways. I think initially the comments that the police chief gave about no one coming forward, that is the words that they used, and that's what the news was reporting, because that's what they were told. That's not true. Now,
I'll say this much too.
Let me say this real quick.
Okay, yeah.
If there wasn't enough for them to work off of, and they're showing their frustration, I understand that fully, because they do not want this situation to be happening in their community. I know they care about keeping people safe. I know that. I really truly believe this. And I do think that I could sense in and this is just my opinion, but I could sense in the statement that the chief was giving his frustration for the situation that they could not be doing more. And the reason that I say that is because when he was talking about how, look, I'd like to say that the threat is no longer present, and I'm paraphrasing, forgive me, I don't have it right in front of me.
Sure.
But essentially he said, I'd like to say that the threat is no longer present. I do not believe that it is. Usually in these cases, these people are not from the area and they flee and they are removed from the situation. It is very unlikely that they would come back to the scene of the crime. You could see that the police tape was blocking off a very large chunk of that corner. And so I think that they were doing what they could, and out of frustration I'm not defending them saying that no one has came forward, but I think that what I was reading between the lines was that they were thinking nothing that we have is credible enough to go off of. Do you know what I mean? There's not enough there,
Yeah, well, there's a lot to it. There were so many squad cars that swarmed onto the scene, not within a minute or two, but within 3-4 minutes upwards. There were a lot of squad cars. And so the first person I talked to, I was kind of in the alley. I could see the Goodyear from where I was, and I was talking to Officer Kopasek, and she was a 5-year veteran in the force, and she basically was listening to me, and I showed her the audio, and we listened to it together. And from there, with everything she was trying to manage, maybe she basically asked me to linger around, and I think she was just kind of, I don't know what she was doing. I don't know how rank and file police officers are trained in a situation like this.
Sure.
But she didn't communicate it immediately to anyone, but she basically told me, like, wait around, a detective might. Actually, she initially said I could just go, or I should. I was saying that I might leave this area, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to go too far, and she didn't have any issue with that. She later approached me and said, stick around, a detective might want to talk to you if you're willing to stick around. I said, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and I don't go into this. I'll just say this much too. Like, it's I always think about privacy. I always think about, in the digital world, how much we nonchalantly don't think much about the power of, like, how much privacy we're giving up or how much we're giving away when we put images and videos of our own lives out into the universe constantly, right? And so it's not nothing to me to think, like, okay, absolutely what I have to do is to give everything that I know to the Eugene Police Department. That's not immediately what I'm thinking. I'm trying to think of what's the best thing to do, and ultimately that's the conclusion that I landed on, right? So I'm doing that, and in between calling loved ones and everything, I'm waiting on the scene and trying to process what happened. And I made a Facebook post an hour after the shooting, just saying what happened, and I wanted people to know I was all right. So I don't know. The point is that maybe that information hadn't reached the police chief when he gave that briefing, but also that. I mean, a lot of things that were. I always find it interesting to be in an event and then find that it gets a lot of media coverage later, because you know, like, from being there, certain things. You don't know everything just because you were there, but I think in many ways there was a lot of accurate. I was like, okay, that's pretty accurate how it went down, the way that a lot of things were reported. So maybe there was. Because I do know that there was, I've heard from different people that there was, like, tension and conflict and heightened fears and anxieties.
Before?
No. There was nothing like that leading up to the shooting. But I'm saying when the people were shot, these artists, that were mostly the group of people that were shot were artists from Pendleton, as well as an artist from the Bay Area and one local Eugenian who wasn't an artist, who she and I have become friends now. And they may not have wanted to work with the police as far as just their MO.
And you can't say that you're saying that is potentially, you don't know anything of that nature. Is that true?
I guess I'm relaying what's been sort of alleged and stated by the police.
Sure.
The police officers, okay. I guess at that point. So, but also I've heard pretty directly that those people felt that the police handled it in a way that was like aggressive, pulling loved ones off of their like loved ones, like a person who wasn't shot was trying to like hold or love or care for or hug a person who was shot, and the police was like pulling that person away in order to attend to, so like things like that I'm not a first responder. I think there's a lot of
I mean, it's a crime scene that could jeopardize the investigation potentially. I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
It's weird, because you never expect just a leisurely moment to instantly become a crime scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't make that choice to walk into a crime. You have that thrust upon you in that kind of a situation. Here's another thing that I just thought about that's really interesting too, is there are places in this country where shootings happen much more regularly.
Yeah.
And that's really, really tragic and unfortunate. I think we have a problem with how much gun violence is happening in this country, and we often have different ideas on what the solutions to those things are. But I'll tell you that Eugene, this particular community, it's like it's being called so quickly like the most significant shooting in Eugene history and things like that. I'm like, wow, really? Just being there, it's like, was I like that close to that moment in history? And then part of why I think of it too is no, I sort of lost my train of thought.
I mean, I think the potential for the potential was there for it to be a very, very, very ugly situation, and it was. And I don't want to downplay these people that were hurt. Fortunately, we're very grateful that everybody has been released from the hospital. To what I've heard, I'm pretty sure.
I believe so. Yeah.
And I'm sure that they're still recovering, but there was no lives lost, and so
that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I had totally resigned myself to the idea that lives were
it's
lost.
Just you talk about like the
shooting
national,
from point blank range,
right?
12 shots.
When you talk about national coverage and you talk about mass shootings, and when something like that's reported, your instant thought is massacre, and
right.
So when it's
attempted
massacres is, I mean, it could have been really ugly, and it's very lucky that it wasn't.
Yeah. That moment when the light bulb came back on in my head again, I was thinking, oh, what they don't tell you about being in a situation like that gets called what it's been called as such a significant mass shooting is like, yes, they had pretty much like roped off the block, and not let people go in, and even like not let artists go back to their car to get their wallets and things like that. But you could walk a block over, maybe a block or and a half over, just east, and all the bars and the nightlife were just operating like a normal Friday night.
Right.
That was such an interesting experience to me because I got there on a bicycle, which means I got home on a bicycle. Nothing happened to me besides trauma, I guess. Such a cliche, but I didn't feel like that in the moment. Really, I was like, "Oh shit, that's crazy," and I was in shock, but it didn't feel like trauma. Days later, when you're thinking about it, you're like, "Oh wow, yeah, this is affecting me," But that's a really interesting part of it too, is just like how much the world kept turning a little bit, So
what were the next few days like? I mean, it's been a week, and since then you've had conversations. You've talked to the chief, and gave a full testimony on the phone. I mean, after the fact.
I went over it with him later. Not a full testimony.
There wasn't anything more to give. I mean, at that point,
we connected because okay, let me say this, like we've probably talked about policing at some point in the past before, and about like, generally I think that public safety is such a big, broad concept that should be something that more people understand they have a responsibility towards. And times I think like the current institutions that kind of in a way like monopolize like heroism and events that are tragic. That sounds like such a weird thing for me to say, like monopolize heroism and things that are tragic, because they're two different things. But when you only have one or a small group of people that respond to things like that, they're just like accountability issues. And I think even like a lot of people that are in uniform would probably admit that on a after a couple of beers or something, even though there's the blue line of silence, right? So I'm like, seeing all these news agencies, and I asked them for corrections. You know, they misspelled Savel's name. I asked them to make, or I pointed out so they can make a correction. And you know, basically, a lot of them said things like, one man filmed the whole thing on his phone, which, you know, I got audio of the shots and I got a little bit of blurry footage right afterwards. That's not filming at all, you know? But then the other thing that comes back to the me and the police chief, Skinner, is that basically a few of them just kind of said like, but Thomas Hiura, offered or refuted the police officer, or countered what Skinner said, saying that like it wasn't true because he did this and this, like he gave all of his evidence that night and stuff. And so you kind of think about it and you're like, okay, well, if this is being considered as seriously as it's considered, like I don't want the police chief to think that I'm causing trouble for him or slandering him in the media for something that isn't, for something like this, you know. That's for a tragedy, for me to try to make, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to think constantly about what the most responsible, respectful, and socially appropriate thing for me to do as a citizen is, as a civilian is. And I'm still trying to think about that. And one of the things I'm kind of doing is probably not really talking about it much after this. You know, it's been a week. I've provided what I could. Just the nature of how media works, it's kind of seemed like it's trickled out. And I'm not trying to make this a press tour. I'm not trying to use this to promote my music. I'm not trying to use this to promote the fact that I was a former candidate for office.
I reached out to you, and the reason and then I asked you to do this was because I said, hey, look, you might be tired of giving your account, but I wanted to at least offer the platform. I wanted to at least give you a chance. I know that you had posted a video trying to, at least for your close circle, for people to hear what you had to say so that you could not have to tell the story a million times.
Right.
And, you posted it on Facebook, and it was a live feed from outside. You went back to the WoW Hall a couple days later.
Yeah.
And the audio,
so I could physically show what I saw and why
Right, and there was some issues with Facebook Live, like it was not getting audio on some people's phones.
Such a mess. I couldn't even hear it back on my own phone after I had uploaded it. But then people could on their computers, and I could on my computer. And then since I shot it all in selfie mode, a lot of people who know the building in the area were actually disoriented.
It was backwards.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just thinking. Look, I mean, I just think it's a week. It's been 1 week. There's been, maybe by then, we talked about this 2 days ago, but I thought maybe by then, maybe we'll have more information or whatever, and at least we can kind of hash it out. Plus, you're one of my best friends, and I just wanted to, I wasn't going to do anything this weekend, and I just felt like this is an opportunity for us to at least talk about it, and also talk about some of the narratives that are being pushed, and let's get into that a little bit, because, it's just really frustrating that hip-hop, when I was starting out and we were doing shows, we would do shows, all ages venues is what we liked the most, because we had a bigger draw. If we could get younger kids to come, and of all ages, older people too. A lot of the older people wanted to be at all ages venues because they weren't there for the alcohol abuse.
We need more.
And so
all ages venues, not alcohol abuse.
I'm talking like grandmas and stuff. They wanted to be there where it was family friendly in their minds. And I mean, our shows were actually, but the fact of the matter is it was such a welcoming thing. And when people heard that we were doing a hip hop show, they were like, can you not do graffiti in the bathroom? And so we literally had a deal with World Flavors that at the beginning of every show, we would say, hey, here's the rules. If you guys break these rules, we aren't going to be able to do this again.
Right.
And fortunately, they didn't expect us. I think it was an unsaid thing that, please don't shoot each other. Mm-hmm. But we would definitely, there's issues and there's history there in the hip hop community across the board. Now, when I say that, what I'm saying is that there's venues are very hesitant.
Yeah.
And
everyone's got a story of having a hard time being booked because
just for hip hop shows, And so obviously there's some reason for that and some history there. Is it disproportionate, the people's reaction? Probably, especially locally. But that being said, people run with it and they kind of want to say, that's what you expect at that kind of show. Let me wash my hands of it. I don't care anymore. And it's just, I don't really care if they care, But it gets really unfortunate when they want to drill that home.
There's an interesting thing that connects in my mind now, which anytime you use a phrase like cancel culture, it's gonna make people polarize and run to their own preconceived side of what the topic is, whether you think cancel culture is a massive problem or some overblown hysteria around people receiving basic consequences for their actions. But I think one thing that's kind of similar in a way is some people refer to cancel culture because they're trying to be like, hey, we have a society that piles on and kicks people while they're down and castigates and relegates people off into the margins, or literally just takes them out of society, whether it's through imprisonment or anything, losing their career. And you have to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis, because I totally believe in consequences. But here's the thing that I think people fail to recognize sometimes, because I've been close to people who have, in some kind of measure, whether it's on a small college campus or in a music community or a tight-knit community of some kind, been canceled, sometimes based on legitimate things or sometimes based on things that were very fabricated or exaggerated, right? And what people don't understand, this goes to the booking point, is that you might think it's not a big deal that a person has experienced it, right? And I'm thinking of hip-hop as the person or the entity that has experienced it. But what it could be is that it might not be that anything really hip-hop got country, the entity of country music came and smacked an acoustic guitar in hip-hop's face. Now hip-hop's down and hip-hop's not charting. But what's happening to hip-hop, especially underground hip-hop, is that every instance that they're trying to be booked, all it takes is for one little decision. It might not even be, hey, we're not going to have the show, but we're not going to give you a guarantee on the show. Or we're not going to give you a door deal. We're just going to give you a flat, amount and then keep everything else. Ways that people with some kind of institutional power, whether it be booking agents or anything, that have people that have access to the club, if everybody is kind of just has a little bit of a bias, if everybody just has a little bit of a bias against hip hop, then what that actually amounts to is hip hop faces a big bias, So that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's and so I just don't want the CCPA, the Community Center for Performing Arts, which Aaliyah Tynan, one of the shooting victims, the one who's actually local to Eugene, who's become my friend, she and I went on Zoom and attended the meeting. Mayor Vinnis was there with the board of the CCPA, and we talked a lot about healing and next steps, and it was a really positive, emotional meeting in many ways. And so I'm really grateful that they do have this long-standing history of understanding that, yes, the fact that we've invited spoken word, which is what hip-hop essentially is in my view, to our venue, despite the fact that we've done that many, many times
for decades.
You know what we've had? A bunch of awesome, successful hip-hop shows in a small market.
For decades. I remember seeing, I could list, Del the Funky Homo Sapien. Louis Logic was one of my absolute favorite shows. Sick. And it was 25 people there.
Hey, you've got an Epic Beardmen sticker over here. Yeah. I saw Del and the Grouch, and I saw Black Francis of the Pixies, which is actually I love that show. That wasn't hip hop. But I've seen I met Anderson .Paak there when he was opening for Watsky and Dumbfounded. A lot of I love a place like WoW Hall in a market like Eugene, because you can get amazing talent that's on the way up.
Right.
You can also get stuff that's come down a little bit, like Aaron Carter.
Sure. I mean, it's just the point is that the WoW Hall has supported hip hop for decades of many different areas in the broad swath of hip hop.
Sometimes not as much as I wish, because true diversity is having everybody.
Yeah.
And you can't have true diversity without hip hop, and you can't have true diversity with anything super overrepresented. Someone who doesn't know about this venue might get the impression that this is the hip hop spot in Eugene. Far from the case.
No, it's whoever wants to pay to rent the venue for the evening. I mean, it's open to, if I wanted to do a record release show where I lose $10,000, I could do that, and but yeah, I mean, it's a great community of people,
and it's super volunteer run, which sadly is something they're getting flack for now. Some people have tried to say the security was so focused on trying to make sure people had either a fully vaccination status or a recent negative test, that they didn't have any security, like actually keeping people safe.
Well,
I don't think that's. I do not think that's true.
let's talk about a place that didn't have security during the summer at the fair. That they were letting people in because this shooting. We can be here for days talking about, gun violence, but we saw similar tropes that were used during the situation that happened at the fair. Once they found out that the young man that was the shooter was African American, and that situation, you could almost argue he was defending himself. There's been countless testimony, about how he was already getting thumped and pulled the gun before. Anyway, regardless, point is that when people in the community found out, oh, this is what this kid looked like, it escalated. Now, I know that a lot of people have asked you, and this is a difficult thing because you were one of the only witnesses.
Right.
Everyone wants to be able to create and spin this story so that there's a narrative based on ethnicity of the suspect. And did you have any?
I hope not, because I haven't heard. Luckily, I haven't heard too much about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really definitely, from what I physically saw of the shooter, I truly believe that I didn't see enough to determine anything like that.
And it's just, it's so funny. It's
would have been
unfortunate.
fully covered. I've even had somebody ask, how do you know it was a man instead of a woman? And that's just, I can't be 1,000% sure of anything like that.
No. And I
in the same way that some if I didn't know you, you could tell me that you've been on testosterone and you were born with female genitalia, right. And there's no way that you identify as a man, and that I couldn't know for sure. You know what I mean? But I want to
say this. And I'm going to precurse this by saying what I do on this podcast is just entertainment. And this is not it's a form of media, sure, but I'm not a journalist. And I've said that repeatedly, that we are just literally having a conversation here and people can do what they want with the information.
Yeah. It'll be sloppy, but
yeah, we're literally, we didn't plan this. We're just talking.
Yeah.
But we're all human beings where we want to speculate. So when I've had conversations with friends, I'm like, I wonder, and one of my first thoughts and I don't want to put this into the ether necessarily, but one of my first thoughts is like, the WoW Hall is probably pretty strict about vaccine requirements. I'm not saying that I think that that's the case. I do not think that has anything to do with it. I'm just curious. Here's my point. It could be anything. And sometimes the best thing to do is nothing, is to wait until the qualified people can find out what it is. And so when you've told me what you've done, you gave everything that you could, and you're like, I want to help. And I guess it's just the frustration is when you read reports that say no one's helping, which that narrative has actually changed. As far as the stories that I've read throughout the week, they're like, look, we don't have enough to go any farther with this as of right now. If you'd have something, please come forward. You know? And that's at least the way that I'm interpreting it.
Yeah, it's sad too, because I have so much deep. Well, it's such an understatement to say I have deep love for the genre. Like, I truly believe that just based on certain things in my past, I wasn't a strong enough person where I could have carried on actually living without music, and then I think probably specifically without hip hop. So it just feel like my and I try to be aware of like my own we call it positionality in the woke world of wokesters.
So
and think about why, like, how can I claim it, but I've come to realize how much I can, and how I can the most respectful thing I can do to the pioneers and the cultivators of hip-hop culture is to show my love in the way that I try to, and also to be open to critique and correction. Absolutely. So I love the genre, and I want it to thrive. I really, really want it to thrive, because it's like I've seen people's just faces and light up and their minds be changed about people that they've known in their life, because they never gave this genre a chance, and it took the right artist to make it speak to them. And it's just like, that's what it's all about.
So you're working on some new music, and I wonder if this is going to make its way in.
Yeah,
this experience has probably changed you in a way.
I put out 2 singles where it's like, openly, yes, I'm like about to be in the swing of my album and of coming out February or March. Okay. But let's not talk about that, right? Isn't that like, like I appreciate that you're willing to chat with me about things generally.
I guess what I was meaning by saying that was that it's going to be interesting to see as an artist, which music and art is used as a release, is a creation tool of therapy. It'll be interesting to see what you choose to hold in and let's, because that's a large undertaking to express all of the things that have been learned from this incident. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and maybe you don't want to put that into your music. Maybe your music is designed to be an escape from that. Do you know what I mean? But
it's kind of too bad. I have the say because I'm doing so much. I'm the person mixing and mastering the album and recording and engineering it and so and writing everything. So like, yeah, I could change certain things. It's funny when you think about how this has impacted me and what I've been working on just coincidentally in my life. The album Chicken is an indictment of essentially, it's a lot of things. It's fun and it's silly because of the track titles and the food theme and like I'm fatter now and I'm embracing it. But like, it's kind of an indictment of cowardice and a herd mentality.
Fatter than what, me? Because I got you beat. Thomas,
but what's more cowardly than what this shooter did, and what's more herd mentality than people just glomming on to a preconceived notion of anything? And like that could go in a few different directions. That's not necessarily just people that are really bigoted or biased against hip hop. There could be people that are irrationally I don't know, there could be another side of
I
it.
think there's a lot of frustration for not having the answers, and
I'm frustrated with my own inability to articulate what the heck I'm thinking about.
Sure, but I think it's
wild stuff.
I think sometimes when it comes to the comment boards, I think that I'm giving a tremendous pass by saying this, but I think that sometimes I've learned to read between the lines that sometimes people say the most idiotic things because they're frustrated, because they want an answer and they're an idiot. Is what it comes down to. No, that's not true. I mean, but the reality is I've been there. They're hurt people. Yeah. We're all hurt people, and our community needs to come together. And I'm happy that you had shared your experience at the Zoom call with the board from, what was the name?
It's the CCPA, Community Center for Performing Arts.
Yeah.
In the 70s, they rallied around this building that was potentially going to get destroyed after it was purchased. In a week, they did every night they did a fundraiser to raise $75,000, I think, in order to save the venue. And ever since that, they've cultivated the space.
Yeah,
I believe that huge. It stands for Woodmen of the World, and it used to have something to do with lumberjacks. And I'm
sure that there's probably some troubled stuff that'll be canceled soon. So I'm kidding. I was a joke. That's a joke. No, I'm saying that the original name. No, who knows? Shout out to the WoW Hall and the people that spend, that volunteer. Also, shout out to the people that are using the WoW Hall as opposed to doing road crew. I'm just kidding. I've known a lot of people over the years that have been in legal trouble, and I don't know if that's still happening.
And they volunteer there.
And my brother actually, my brother did at one point. My brother had gotten a DUI, and I can talk about this openly because he's gone now, so he can't beat me up. But he got a DUI, and he had some road crew that he had to make up, and he served that at the WoW Hall, which I actually was very disappointed that he didn't have the hard knocks. Or he didn't actually go, serve the community. I mean, I think he did in his own right, but
such an amazing.
I'm like, what a cop out. He's working the entrance to the hall, know, and I mean, my brother was good security guy.
The entrance is a genuinely taxing thing because you don't get to see the show.
No, I'm talking about in the room, like when you actually right past where the merch table is. Yeah,
that's hardly work.
I was like, oh my god, Joey.
Well, I'm gonna go to the volunteer orientation. Because I'd like to volunteer, and it looks like we want to wrap
this up. Yeah. Thomas, I appreciate you so much, and thank you at least for coming on and talking to me. I wanted to kind of hear what you have to say. Plus, it gives me an excuse, to spend time. You're the only person that's been in the studio in the last 2 years, and so I've been here, obviously. So there's been two of us. We are going to end it with end it with a song, and this is somebody that you've been working with, and you
yeah. Let me say real quick
this.
though, if this comes out today on the 22nd,
it's probably going to be Saturday.
Yeah. Then T Grizzly show is tonight. I was also given a ticket by some of the same homies in the scene that are putting this on, and Savel's going to be on that one, and a bunch of other cool artists are going to be on that one. So it's kind of this like first big hip hop show again after what happened on Friday. There's been a lot of considerations about having ample security, and as from what I know, that's well taken care of. But I think it's a great opportunity. I don't really like T Grizzly's music, to be perfectly honest with you, but
that's an endorsement. Thanks.
He's coming to town, and I'm really excited to support the people that I love that are going to be a part of it. I'm not shading anybody for if they are afraid to come to a show or simply want to stay home or for any reason at all. But I'm very excited to be there, and I hope to see some of y'all too.
Yeah. So you personally chose this.
Yeah,
this
because I'm filming this video for JustJoey, and he's the bomb.
Yeah.
He's an amazing artist, and we got some great 4K shots for this video for this Second Thoughts song. So thank you for.
Yeah, so that's really cool. I'm newly familiar with this artist. I look forward to seeing the music video that you're working on, something that you've been doing a lot behind the scenes, working on some new music videos. I saw some footage from it, and it looks amazing.
Beautiful.
So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Thomas, for being here.
Domo arigato.
Shout out to the WoW Hall. We're going to end this with a song from the artist JustJoey. This is Second Thoughts.
This life come with second thoughts. Too many times I thought of checking off. I die a little every time you send me off. Stop the flight, I feel like stepping off. This life is irregular. Acclimate to slow boil temperatures. All of a sudden it's pretty hot. Maybe cause the fire's gone red alert. And I know it won't help to think myself in circles. And I don't stop there.